Hey everyone, this is Miguel, the Movie Encyclopedia. Today I'm going to be talking about Christopher Nolan's newest action thriller, Tenet, starring John David Washington and Elizabeth Debicki. The movie follows a spy known only as the protagonist who's recruited by a shadowy organization called Tenet to go on a mission to prevent World War III at the hands of a Russian oligarch, played by Kenneth Branagh, who has control over a technology that causes time inversion, aka the reversal of time on an object or person. The film has a fascinating science fiction topic that the entire story revolves around, matched only by Christopher Nolan's brilliant visual style, cinematography, and production design. However, the story doesn't explain the concept of time inversion very well within the context of the story. Time inversion is incredibly confusing, and even though it makes more sense as the story progresses, most people will not understand what happened or how it happened or really how time inversion completely works by the end of their first viewing. So I can really see why so many people, specifically critics, have voiced their dislike for this idea more than any other Nolan film. Christopher Nolan is not a director who's afraid to write complex stories with complex science fiction or thriller topics at their center, but this movie takes complex writing and science fiction ideas to a whole other level of confusion when blending time inversion, which is basically reverse entropy, in normal real time with a spy story. This is due partly by the furiously quick explanation of time inversion, and partly because half the spoken dialogue is drowned out by the sound effects and music score. I do not understand why Nolan keeps insisting on having sound effects and music score be louder than the dialogue for his dialogue heavy thrillers. It's okay for some movies like Inception, where he only uses that kind of technique a few times, or Dunkirk, where it really isn't a dialogue heavy film. The movie is more focused on the plot and the story. But for a movie like Tenet, where so much of the story needs to be understood through the dialogue, I do not understand why he wants to hinder the audience's experience by making the music and sound effects more prevalent than the actual dialogue. By that I mean you can barely hear what the people are saying throughout the entire movie because the sound effects and the music are louder. This being said, the movie does feature the most creative use of time manipulation and time travel I have ever seen in a movie. How it all works is not very clear, and the execution of the writing could have been better, but I'm sure it makes more sense for the most part after a few screenings. Hopefully. I haven't actually seen this movie multiple times, but I hope that once this movie comes out on DVD, I'll be able to watch it more times and understand it better. The way Christopher Nolan presents his version of what is essentially time travel is unlike anything that has ever been done in the world of film or really any form of entertainment media, which I believe is something that deserves to be applauded. The first half of the film is very slow and confusing as it rushes through the explanation of inversion and then uses it very limitedly so it can focus on its story. The second half of the film, on the other hand, is a lot more fast paced and uses inversion more often, which helps audience members understand how it works a little bit better. So by the end of your first screening, you understand some of how time inversion works, which feels really good. The visual effects and production and action in this movie is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, no surprise there. Not name one Christopher Nolan movie with bad production design and visuals. There is none. This movie uses its inversion idea very well visually, and the fight choreography is some of the best I've ever seen in a Christopher Nolan movie. And don't forget that he directed the freaking Dark Knight trilogy. And this movie has brilliant fight choreography. I love that John David Washington did all of his own stunts in this film, since the majority of the action is with the protagonist, and since Washington does all of his stunts, it adds an extra sense of realism to an already very realistic looking film. The performances in this film are very good. Special shout out to John David Washington, who was fantastic throughout. But the characters are very unmemorable, as many of the characters lack any depth. They're intriguing, sure, but they also lack three-dimensionality. This tends to happen in most Christopher Nolan movies because Nolan tends to focus more on story and concepts than on character development. There are a few exceptions, of course. I personally felt like the Dark Knight trilogy had tons of great character development. And I also feel that most Christopher Nolan movies have great, well written protagonists, you know? I really love the protagonists of movies like Interstellar, Inception, the Dark Knight trilogy, and The Prestige, which had two protagonists. Sadly, that is not the case with John David Washington's The Protagonist, as he has nothing more to add to the film than a badass moveset, and being a great spy. He lacks the three-dimensionality of characters like Cobb and Matthew McConaughey's character from from Interstellar, which is kind of a disappointment. But at least he's very well acted. The actual story of Tenet gets lost in Nolan's execution of time inversion and amounts up to a pretty generic spy story, similar to a pre-Daniel Craig 007 movie without the charm. It really feels like Nolan cares more about inversion than he does about actually telling a complex spy story. However, that might be for the better because I cannot imagine how more confusing this movie could have been if it was a complex spy story meets a complex time travel story, because it's so hard to wrap around the complex time inversion of this film. So in conclusion, the movie may be one of Christopher Nolan's weaker films, but there's enough complex writing and original ideas to keep Nolan's fans happy. Be warned though, this movie definitely warrants multiple film viewings to fully understand the story, and most importantly, you're gonna want to watch this movie with subtitles. So honestly, if I were you, I would wait for this movie to come out on DVD and watch it there, because then, with subtitles, it will be a much smoother experience. I'm going to give Christopher Nolan's Tenet a 7.3 out of 10 stars. I thought this movie was good. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Make sure to follow my Facebook page for movie and television news and updates on my next videos. Also, make sure to check out my new podcast, the Movie Encyclopedia Podcast, where I talk about movies, TV shows, and video games. Links for both are available in the description below. Until my next video, see you then.